Let's get something straight. Nobody cares about you. Not in the way you think, anyway. They're too busy caring about themselves. And you know what? That's liberating. You've been walking around thinking there's a spotlight on you. Like every choice you make, what you wear, who you date, how you fail, gets broadcast to a jury of your imagined critics. Let's break a myth we've all quietly agreed to believe, that people are constantly observing, judging, and analyzing our every move, that when you stumble over your words, someone logs it. That when you wear the wrong outfit or crack a joke that falls flat, the room collectively takes mental notes and files them under reasons to mock you later. It's comforting in a weird way to believe we're that important. But we're not. Most people don't notice, and if they do, they forget quickly. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Everyone else is just as self-absorbed as you are. They're busy replaying their awkward conversation from yesterday. They're wondering if they smell weird or if they said too much at the meeting. The inner monologue you have running on a loop in your head, they've got one too. And it's not about you, it's about them. Everyone's the main character in their own script, and you're a background blur in most of those stories. Even the people who love you, admire you, follow you, yeah, even them. They're not obsessed with your misstep, not because they don't care, but because they've got bills, breakups, deadlines, and doubts. Life is loud. Nobody's got time to catalog your every flaw. They're trying to survive their own mess, not keep a running commentary on yours. That thing you said 3 years ago that still wakes you up at 2 a.m., no one remembers it. They forgot it before you even finished the sentence. That moment you fell down the stairs or tripped over your words in a job interview, funny for a moment, maybe, but their minds moved on. You're not on their highlight reel. You're not the headline. You're a flicker in the feed, seen, scrolled, gone. We've all built these mental prisons thinking we're under surveillance when really we're invisible most of the time. That sounds harsh, but it's not. It's a relief. Because if no one's watching, you don't have to perform. You don't have to fake it, filter it, or fix it before it's broken. You're free to exist, honestly, imperfectly, quietly, loudly, however you want. But we don't see it that way, do we? We stay stuck in our heads, convinced everyone's whispering. Every silence feels loaded, every side glance feels sharp, but 99% of the time, it's not personal. It's not about you. It never was. People are carrying their own storms. They don't have the capacity to obsess over your rainfall. And sure, some people will judge. But even the critics move on. They forget you the second someone else gives them a better distraction. We are living in an age of constant noise. Nobody holds on to your moment of embarrassment because there's already a new one on their screen, waiting to be devoured. You're not the main course. You're not even the appetizer. You're a fleeting headline, and that's if you're lucky. So if you're holding yourself back, hiding your voice, shrinking to fit in some invisible box because you think they'll talk or they'll laugh, remember, they might. But only for a second. Then they'll go right back to thinking about themselves. Because people aren't thinking about you. They're too busy trying to survive themselves. At first, when you realize that nobody's really thinking about you, it can sting. You feel small. You wonder if no one's watching, then what's the point? That little voice inside you whispers that maybe your life is just background noise. But that voice, it's lying. This isn't a funeral for your significance. It's the beginning of your liberation. Because if no one's watching, no one's judging. And if no one's judging, you can finally breathe. We spend so much of our lives curating ourselves. We dress for the crowd. We speak like we're being recorded. We live like there's always a panel of judges holding up scorecards. But what happens when that panel doesn't exist? What happens when you realize the curtain's already down and you're the only one left on stage? That's not the end of the show. It's the moment you finally start performing for the right audience. You. Think about how much you've not done because you thought someone might laugh. Or how many times you edited yourself to be easier to swallow, more likable, less you. But when the fear of being seen fades, When the pressure lifts, you start making different choices. Choices that aren't pre-approved by a crowd you invented in your own mind. And that's where it gets good. That's where things actually start to matter. The freedom doesn't hit you like lightning. It's more like peeling off a heavy coat you didn't know you were wearing. Slowly, you stop overthinking your words. You stop hesitating before you speak, before you post, before you act. You stop wondering if you're coming off the right way. You just are. And once you taste that kind of ease, it ruins everything fake. You won't want to go back. Freedom doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care better. You stop spending your energy worrying about strangers' opinions and start using that energy to build, to explore, to create. You stop being paralyzed by what-ifs. You get out of your own way. You take risks not because they're safe, but because you realize safety was never the goal. Authenticity was. Letting go of that invisible audience is like turning off background noise you've lived with for years. At first, it's disorienting. You keep looking over your shoulder, waiting for the commentary. But when none comes, something inside of you starts to unfold. It's like your real self had been hiding in a back room, waiting for permission to come out. And finally, the door is open. When you're no longer chained to how you're perceived, your creativity skyrockets, your decisions get bolder, you say no more often, you say yes to things that scare you, you take up space without apology. That freedom reshapes you. You stop tiptoeing through life, you stop negotiating your value with people who never earned a seat at your table in the first place. It's not loneliness, it's clarity. It's not apathy, it's control. You realize that the world isn't here to validate you. It's just the setting. You're the one writing the story. You're not a product for people to consume. You're not a billboard. You're not a brand. You're a person. And when no one's watching, you get to be one. Perfection is a costume, a carefully ironed, color-coordinated illusion stitched together by fear. It's not real. It's never been real. But we chase it like it's oxygen. We adjust, we edit, we polish ourselves for a show that never starts, for an audience that never arrives. Why? Because we've been taught that being accepted means being untouchable. That if we can just clean up the edges, no one will see the mess underneath. But here's the kicker, everyone's got a mess. You spend years trying to control how people see you. You talk just the right amount, say just the right things, dress like you've got it all together, smile like it's tattooed on, but none of it's you. It's a version of you, airbrushed, filtered, pre-approved for public consumption. It's performance art. And the applause you think you're waiting for, it doesn't come. Not because you're not good enough, but because nobody's really watching. They're performing too. We're all acting in plays written by our insecurities. We dress in emotional armor. We present our best selves, which usually means our safest selves. We don't say what we want to say, we say what sounds good. We don't post what we love, we post what we think will get likes. Every move is calculated, and all for what? To impress people who are too busy rehearsing their own scenes to notice ours. Perfection is exhausting because it's unsustainable. It demands you stay frozen in place, no risks, no vulnerability, no visible cracks. But life doesn't happen in perfection. It happens in chaos, in stumbles, in weird timing, and inconvenient emotions. If you're chasing perfection, you're not living, you're editing. You're cutting out the bloopers that made the movie worth watching in the first place. And deep down, you know it. You feel it. That itch of unreality, the hollowness that shows up when you've said all the right things but still feel unknown. That's the price of perfection. It keeps you polished, but it also keeps you lonely. People can't connect with a version of you that doesn't exist. They don't fall in love with the mask. They fall in love with the parts you're trying to hide. We perform because we're afraid of rejection. We think, if I'm flawless, they can't leave me, they can't laugh, they can't hurt me. But perfection doesn't protect you, it isolates you, it keeps you at a distance. It turns every interaction into a transaction. I give you a perfect version of me and you give me approval. But you don't need approval, you need connection, and connection starts where the performance ends. The scariest thing is to show up unpolished, to walk out with the frayed edges showing, to say the wrong thing, to be misunderstood and not rush to fix it. But that's also where the magic is. That's where people finally get to see you, not the stage version, the real one, the one who's trying, stumbling, learning. That version scares the hell out of you, but that's the version worth knowing. So here we are, pretending to be flawless for people who are pretending to be flawless. A room full of mirrors, reflecting nothing back. Maybe it's time to walk out of that room. Maybe it's time to drop the act. Because the audience isn't real, the performance isn't necessary, and the person you are underneath all of it, that's who we're dying to meet. Want to move on to key point no 4 next, or thinking of bundling these into approval is a leash, a soft one. Zena's classified. Approval is a leash, a soft one. You're not living, you're adjusting. Adjusting to what they want. Who's they? Doesn't even matter. Could be your parents, your friends, the algorithm, a room full of strangers. You just want to be liked. You just want to be safe. But approval is a moving target. What earns it today will be outdated tomorrow. You mold yourself to fit someone else's preferences, and by the time you've nailed it, they've already changed the rules. It's like trying to win a game where the board keeps shifting underneath you, and slowly, without even realizing it, you become a version of yourself that isn't built on truth, it's built on feedback. The moment you stop needing that feedback, something wild happens. You start making decisions without consulting the imaginary boardroom in your head. You stop running every thought through a mental focus group. You say what you mean, you do what feels right, not what looks right. You stop being everyone's projection and start becoming your own person. And that's where the power starts to show up. Because real power isn't loud. It's not performative. It doesn't beg. Real power is quiet and grounded. It's knowing that even if nobody claps, you're still going to speak. Even if nobody agrees, you're still going to move. It's trusting your own compass, even when the path is foggy. It's knowing that worth doesn't come from being seen, it comes from being solid. People who are addicted to approval are easy to manipulate, easy to control. Dangle a compliment in front of them and they'll follow you off a cliff. Hint at disapproval and they'll shrink themselves down to stay in your good graces. But when you let go of the need to be liked, you become untouchable. You become dangerous in the best possible way. No one owns you, no one steers you. You walk into a room and you don't need it to like you, you just need it to make space. This isn't about arrogance, it's not about pretending not to care. That's still a performance. This is about choosing authenticity over validation. It's about letting the chips fall where they may. It's about being okay with being misunderstood. Because the truth is, the more real you become, the more likely it is that some people will walk away. Let them. You weren't made to be digestible for everyone. Power shows up when you can hear criticism and not collapse. When you can stand in a room full of silence and not beg for noise. When you can disappoint someone and not unravel. That kind of power doesn't come overnight. It's built in every small moment where you choose your own voice over theirs. It's built when you stop asking for permission to exist. And once you stop seeking approval, you don't just free yourself, you give other people permission to do the same. You walk into rooms differently, you speak differently, you love differently, and that ripple spreads because someone will see you and think, if they can do that, maybe I can too. That's the kind of power that outlives you. Failure only feels massive when you believe the world is watching. When you think there's a crowd circling your mistake, pointing fingers, whispering, keeping score, that's what makes it feel like a collapse. Not the actual failure, but the imagined spotlight, the belief that you've let down an audience that was never really there. But the truth, most people didn't even notice. They were too caught up in their own fires to watch you fumble the match. You remember your failures because they're yours. You fell them, you tripped over them, you nursed the bruises and played back the scenes in high definition. But to everyone else, it was background noise. A fleeting moment, if that. People don't archive your downfalls the way you do. They don't catalog your flaws. They don't rewind your mess-ups before bed. Only you do that. And you've been carrying that weight alone, thinking the world helped build it. Failure becomes less terrifying when you strip away the illusion that you're under surveillance. Suddenly, it's not a scandal. It's just a bump. It doesn't define you. It doesn't ruin you. It doesn't echo the way you think it does. When you stop assuming that everyone's tracking your screw-ups, you can actually learn from them. You can actually move on, because the thing holding you back wasn't the failure, it was the shame that came with it. Shame thrives in imaginary audiences. It needs someone to perform for, someone to disappoint. But if no one's watching, there's no one to impress and no one to fail. There's just you, doing your best. Falling, maybe. Getting back up, hopefully. That's all life is, really. Trial, error, adjust, repeat. And the sooner you stop dramatizing the fall, the faster you rise from it. The irony is, when you accept that failure is inevitable, you fail better. You stop making it mean something about who you are. You stop turning every setback into a personal indictment. You look at it for what it is. Information. Feedback. A signal. And that makes you dangerous in the best way. Because people who aren't afraid to fail aren't afraid to try. If you put your failure like it's a speck, like it's going to go viral. But most of your failures are quiet, private. They happen in empty rooms, in soft moments, in conversations no one remembers but you. And that's okay. That's where real growth lives, off stage. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. It's yours. And you don't owe it to anyone to package it into something inspirational. You just have to survive it and then use it. Go back and check, did anyone bring them up again? Probably not. Because no one is thinking about your failure the way you are. The world moves on faster than your pride does. And that's not cold, it's a gift. It means you're allowed to mess up without being labeled forever. It means you get more than one shot. It means you're not as fragile as you think. Once you stop magnifying your own mistakes through the lens of imagined judgment, you gain something better than approval. You gain clarity. You start seeing failure as just part of the road, not a dead end. You start living more boldly because the cost of messing up just isn't as high as your brain made it out to be. And that's when things start to shift. When you stop being afraid to fall because you finally realize no one's keeping track but you. Here's a myth we've all been sold, that in order to matter, you have to stand out. That being enough only counts if you're exceptional. Be the best. Be the first. Be the loudest, the fastest, the most inspiring damn version of yourself. Or be invisible. We measure worth in extremes now. You can't just be a good person. You have to be remarkable. You can't just work hard. You need to be a genius. And if you're not, you start to believe you're failing at life. But most people aren't extraordinary. They're not revolutionaries or prodigies or billionaires. They're not breaking records or setting trends. They're showing up quietly, steadily, imperfectly. And that's not failure, that's life. You don't need to be a spectacle to have value. You don't need a standing ovation to matter. Some people will never win awards, never go viral, never get a feature article, and they still have worth that can't be measured in metric. The pressure to be extraordinary isn't about growth. It's about fear. Fear that if we don't stand out, we'll disappear. That if we're not special, we'll be forgotten. So we hustle, we compete, we curate, we burn out trying to be more than we need to be. But somewhere along the way, we lose the plot. Because being enough has never been about comparison. It's not a ranking system. It's a birthright. You were enough the moment you opened your eyes. You weren't born to be a brand. You weren't born to be content. You weren't born to impress strangers. You were born to live. To feel things deeply, to connect, to build, to break sometimes. You were born to just be. Not because of what you achieve, but because you exist. And that's a hard truth to accept when the world screams more at you every second. But it's the truth nonetheless. Look around. The people who've mattered to you the most, they probably weren't famous. They probably didn't win anything big. They just showed up in a way that stayed with you. A teacher, a friend, a relative who listened when you couldn't talk to anyone else. They weren't extraordinary. They were present. They were real. And they were enough. More than enough. This idea that you have to earn your worth, that you have to upgrade yourself into relevance, it's a trap. It keeps you chasing approval that never lasts. Because even when you are extraordinary for a moment, the bar moves. You win one race, they ask why you didn't win it faster. You reach one goal and suddenly you're behind again. That's a problem with tying your worth to performance. It's never done. You never arrive. When you drop the need to be exceptional, you start seeing beauty in the small things again. In ordinary laughter, in average mornings, in unremarkable acts of love and kindness that never get documented. And you realized those things aren't less than. They're everything. They're the real currency of being human. No filters, no applause, just presence, connection, and truth. You don't have to build a legacy. You don't have to be remembered in history books. You don't have to be louder or shinier or smarter than everyone else in the room. You just have to be fully, honestly, without the pressure to impress. That's not mediocrity, it's peace. And some people spend their whole lives chasing extraordinary, only to realize they already had everything they needed in being simply, unapologetically enough.